the age of the universe, and what is your method of determining it? And Dr. Waggoner, you will have 17 minutes, and Dr. Hovind, you will have 10.
Sorry, this will take a second to get my monitor working again. Well, I think I can, let's see here. Well, I think I can assure both you, Dr. Hovind, and everyone here that I will never again teach about Nebraska Man and Piltdown Man. Those are permanently out of my lecture notes for all time. Thank you. Right, and yes, I did note Java Man, which of course was, you know, simply in the original find, it was a skull cap and a leg bone found a long distance away. I do hope you will allow me to mention the Sangiran II skull, which turned up I don't remember the exact date. I believe it was in the 1980s, which is basically a skull with most of the face still present. I can drop Lucy if you really think I should. But a fossil found in a cave in South Africa called Sterkfontein, known as Littlefoot, has recently turned up, which they are still getting out of the ground, but it appears to be a complete Australopithecine. If you'll let me teach about that, I suppose that's fair. Neanderthals are old men with arthritis. Yes, of course, the first complete Neanderthal skull found at a place in France called La Chapelle-aux-Saints was definitely an old man who was stooped with arthritis. The baby Neanderthal skeletons that have turned up at a few locations in Europe probably weren't, but I won't teach about those if you'd rather I not. I certainly don't want to upset anybody. Oh, incidentally, this is a reconstruction of the skull of Peking Man, and you did mention that all evidence had disappeared, so I guess I won't teach about Peking Man, except the location was reopened in the 1970s. More bones have been found, and very similar bones to this have turned up elsewhere. So if Arkansas law does not allow me to teach Peking Man, maybe it will allow me to teach about Yunshai Man, for instance, which is a substantially complete skull. So thank you for giving such an excellent answer to my question. What I believe we're supposed to talk about now is age of the Earth, and it is obviously between 6,000 and 10,000 years. That's what's printed in standard commentary on the King James. 6,000 plus a little bit was the age arrived at by an Irish Archbishop, Archbishop Usher of Armagh, doing the calculations back in the 1500s. And I really don't want even to attempt to defend the idea that the Earth could possibly be old. What I do have, again, is another question that's been troubling me a great deal that comes from time that I've spent going out into the Mojave Desert of southern Nevada and southeastern California. Yes, the largest city in the Mojave Desert is Las Vegas. But there's nothing wrong with Las Vegas that couldn't be cured with a nice little fire and brimstone shower, if you ask me. Everything you've heard is true, but the surrounding regions are quite nice. And this right here is Owens Lake, California, just outside the small town of Independence, as seen from that's probably the Inyo Mountains in the foreground with the Sierra Nevada in the background. By the way, the Inyo Mountains have a very steep slope that's nearly vertical, that's affectionately known as the Inyo Face. Thanks. It was a sympathy laugh, but I appreciate it anyhow. Right. Owens Lake used to be a lake. There used to be water in it. There used to be steamboat service across the lake, freighting silver that was coming from the mines up in the mountains down to the nearest town of Independence, California. Owens Lake, unfortunately, dried up in the early 1900s. Los Angeles, the city, bought the rights to all of the streams and the springs that flowed into Owens Lake and kept it moist. Those have all been diverted into an aqueduct. And Owens Lake is now Owens Dry Lake, and it's visible as that white patch off in the distance. There is no more water except for a few days after the occasional rainstorm. What it's left behind is, well, what it's left behind is bad news for asthma sufferers, because the dry dust on the floor of the lake is now free to blow, and generally makes life rather miserable when a windstorm comes through, as they often do out there. But most of the surface of the lake is made up of salt. When you get a lake that is cut off from flowing out to another source, be it another lake or the ocean, when that happens, there's nowhere for the water to go but through evaporation, leaving salt behind. So a lake that cannot flow out will become increasingly salty, as we've seen happen in the Dead Sea, for example, which has no outlet to the ocean. If you were to drive maybe 75, 100 miles, you would come to a location called Badwater, which happens to be 279 feet below sea level. So I can say that visiting there was definitely the low point of my career. It's the lowest spot in the Western Hemisphere. And it's what's left of another dried up desert lake. We know this because, well, it was dry when Europeans came through. But if memory serves, there have been some Native American artifacts that have been found on the shores that include things like fish hooks and fish traps and things of that sort. So we know that there were people there at a time when Badwater was still an isolated lake. And it apparently has grown extremely salty, saltier and saltier. The water has left, and we end up with a flat valley that is completely crusted with salt. That looks like snow. It isn't. And if you dig down, you get tens of feet of solid salt. This is not a very, very pleasant place to visit on hot days, because the temperature has a way of going over 130 Fahrenheit.